All set? Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Buxton Planning Board for Tuesday, November 12th to order. Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for Don Smith Don Smith OBO and Dustin Hunt, an application for conditional use for a office building, 22 Ripple Lane, map 3, lot 1-1A-1. A motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for Don Smith, OBO, Dustin Hunt, 22 Ripple Lane, map 3, lot 1-1-A1.
Second.
I have a motion by Scott, second by Craig to open the public hearing. Discussion, all those in favor? B5. Okay, Mr. Hunt or Mr. Smith, could you just come to the podium and briefly tell us what you're planning to do?
Okay.
Yep.
I'm using the area for storage for my construction business. So as we talked about last meeting,
Okay.
staging, pump equipment, things like that.
Okay. Questions from the board? Roger.
No, not at the moment, no.
Craig?
Can you think about operating hours? Every business in town has operating hours.
Yep. I'd say 7 to 5
7
is,
to 5.
would be reasonable.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and then weekends, I know you're never there on weekends.
No, not on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. So what if you said like 7 or 8 in the morning till like 2 in the afternoon on Saturday?
Yeah, that would be helpful, just in case.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because since if this gets approved, it goes with the property if you ever moved out.
Yep.
So the next person in would be set to those hours unless they came back to the board to
Change
change
it.
them, so.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a good idea.
That's agreeable.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So just to reconfirm, hours would be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays.
Yep.
And nothing on Sunday.
You think 5 is late enough?
Yes, for sure. We leave the job sites at 4, so
Scott?
if we did go there, that would be plenty of time to get there before 5.
All set?
Keith?
I'm all set also.
Questions from town staff, code enforcement office, any comments?
Not until we get further into it.
Okay. Any butters like to speak? Anybody from the general public like to comment on the application? Okay.
You want to speak?
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Scott, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Craig to close the public hearing. Discussion, all those in favor? B5. Okay, are we ready to move on to conditions of approval?
Yes.
I will read the standard conditions of approval, and then we'll add any additional conditions to the basic ones. Conditions of approval for conditional use permit. All elements and features of this application and all representations made by the applicant concerning the development and use of the property which appear in the record of the planning board proceedings are conditions of approval. No change from the conditions of approval is permitted unless an amended plan is first submitted to and approved by the planning board. Number 2, that the applicant be in compliance with all applicable provisions of Article 8, 2B, and Article 10. Number 3, that the applicant be in compliance with all applicable provisions of Section 11, if applicable. Number 4, all outstanding bills paid before a building permit is issued, And number 5, any others? Do we have any others? Patty, do you have any additional conditions?
We should talk about, having enough land to, so this is in a split zone,
Okay,
village and rural. We can move the zone by 50 feet. We should agree to do that.
okay. We need to vote on that?
I put it in the conditions.
Okay.
So if you vote on the conditions, I think that will cover it,
Okay,
if everybody agrees. Also, section 9.8 allows the board to use similar uses, so we should determine that this is similar to, residential construction is similar to professional business office, because we don't list residential construction in our land use table.
okay,
Section 9.8 also says that there can be more than one accessory use on a property, so we should say that that applies.
okay,
The other ones were there will be no fleet vehicle maintenance. Outside lights shall be shielded pursuant to section 10.16. And the above-ground fuel storage tank is removed within however many days you decide of approval.
okay. Any others?
Do we want to mention the stormwater? Do we want to talk about?
Yes, I was going to ask. As I see that you sent us pictures that the tank was being cleaned.
The tank was removed.
Tank is gone?
We've had it pumped out completely, and it's completely gone off the property, and all tanks are gone now.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you've provided us tonight with pictures of the stormwater?
Yes, we created two very large stormwater collection areas per the recommendation of the DEP. We just finished that on Saturday and brought in riprap. And Patty didn't, I just kind of sprung it on her this morning. She didn't have time in her schedule today to go and take a look, but she's going to head out and take a look and let me know if she has any questions. But we've got all of our screening still in place, as you can see behind that. And the depth again of that, the one you're looking at there at the top, is about 40 inches, almost 4 feet deep, which we filled with riprap, and you can't really tell from this angle. But, and the second one as well is 48 inches deep, with absolutely plenty of space to collect any water that is going to go across the parking lot. So I think this will be more than adequate in keeping the water on the property, and I think this will be a good resolution to the problem that was originally stated.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So is there a sand layer underneath that
Yes.
riprap? Can you just maybe just describe a little bit what the makeup, the cross-section of that is?
Brian, you did the construction work?
It's just, we dug down, and it's, that whole area is, it's an aquifer, so it's pure sand. Like, as far, you dig down 12 inches and you're in pure sand. So we just dug it all out, the reclaim, put it all on the sides, on the berm, and then now it's all pure sand on the bottom, and then the riprap's all over that.
I see you installed silt fence.
Yep,
And
we
silt
did that a
fencing's
while
installed.
ago.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So we maybe make an additional condition that, once you have a chance to inspect and sign off, then we can approve this?
We put it, on the last one, we put a 6-month
Okay?
review to make sure it's working. Do you
Okay.
want to do the same?
Yes. Okay. Any other additional conditions?
None I can think of.
Okay. Then I'll move on to motions for approval. Number 1, based on previous discussions, we find the application be in compliance with all applicable provisions of Article 82B, Section 10, and Section 11, if applicable. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion by myself, a second by Craig, for condition number 1. All those in favor? 5. Number 2, motion to approve this application with the conditions stated from this evening and from the previous meetings and the additional conditions we applied. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Craig. Discussion, all those in favor? 5. So you're responsible to follow the conditions that we've given you of approval. Any changes in those conditions, as I said when I read the conditions of approval, you need to come back to us and have those amended. I don't think you're going to have any issues, but just be wary of that.
Yep.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for Andrew Morrow for Bill Ham, an application for a 9-lot subdivision on Old Standish Road, map 1, lots 132-1 and 131, and map 2, lot 4 for Bucks Estates. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion to open the public hearing for Bill Ham, application for 9-lot subdivision on Old Standish Road, map 1, lots 132-1 and 131, map 2, lot 4.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Craig, a second by Scott to open the public hearing. Discussion, all those in favor? Be 5. Good evening.
Good evening, Andy Morrill, civil engineer with BH2M. Also with me is the applicant, Bill Ham. As the board knows, we were last here on, last month on the 28th, where we reviewed the site walk. Just want to update the board on some things we've done since then. We did provide the town with the copies of all the submissions we'd made over the course of this project. Gave Patty the copies of those. I hope you guys were able to get those if you wanted them. Some items that we've talked about over the last couple meetings and at the site walk, I just want the board to be aware we've heard them and we're going to make sure they're on the plan. There was a discussion about a gang mailbox. We'll add a note to our plan before you guys sign that the applicant will be required to do a gang mailbox. The applicant is in the process of working with the town on the performance guarantee. Gorham Sand and Gravel has done an estimate that has been submitted to the town. I understand the selectmen have reviewed it and asked for one change to that. The applicant has had Gorham Sand and Gravel update that. That was provided to Patty today. So that process is well underway.
We don't have a copy of that?
I was trying to find the map, I wasn't listening.
Okay, sorry. Oh, the estimate of the road for Gorham Sand and Gravel. We didn't.
The selectmen have a copy of that?
Okay.
Because it's the
We don't
selectmen-
review that at all?
Did you pass it out at the meeting last?
No.
No.
I think we just gave you a copy at
Okay.
the meeting last time, yeah.
No, I didn't provide it to you, but we do have it. And the Board of Selectmen and Public Works Director have looked at it. The only comment they had was they wanted to add top coat paving price, because I didn't see it in the,
And we did revise that and send that over to you today.
Okay,
Just
I
so you're aware, yeah.
I think it came in before I left.
Yeah, it was towards the end of the day, yeah. As the board knows, we did reach out to the town of Standish, since this parcel is in Standish. They do not want to review the project. Because we're not proposing anything in Standish, I will add a note to the plan that says that, just to cover things down the road. The fire chief had asked us to add a note that the fire tanks would meet a certain state requirement. We'll certainly add that note to the plans. I know at the site walk, somebody had pointed out that the owner of the original Lot 3 was not accurate on the plans. We're going to update that and make sure that's on the plan that you guys sign moving forward. Patty did reach out to us about the nitrate requirements in your ordinance. As the board knows, this project was submitted in November of last year. We've been working on this for a while. To date, we have not been asked to do a nitrate analysis. The project is in a sand and gravel aquifer. As we all know, we submitted maps that show that as part of this application. It's our opinion that a nitrate analysis is not warranted for this project based on the location of the project and its proximity to abutting houses and wells and septic system. As the board knows, the project was reviewed and approved by the DEP and the Army Corps. The town ordinance has a requirement that if the lot density is greater than one lot per 100,000 square feet, a nitrate analysis is required. As the board knows, the applicant owns approximately 191 acres. If we do the 9 lots that they're currently proposing and the 3 lots that were previously developed along Old Standish Road, our density is about 1 lot per 700,000 square feet. So we're about 7 times less the density of the requirement to meet that requirement. 1 lot for every 693,000 square feet is the exact number. So, as the board knows, Mark Hampton Associates completed test pits and high-intensity soils for the parcel. We don't feel a nitrate analysis is needed in this case, and we feel like that information is more than adequate. As I mentioned, we'll be sure to add the final conditions of approval for the project, and our hope is to come back to you guys at a future meeting where you guys could sign a plan. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it back to you. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions from the board? Heath?
No, I do not have any questions.
Mr. Warshall?
Yeah, thank you for the overview. As you know, and you stated in your submission, there's been new board members since this was presented. When this project was originally presented, I was on the board at the time.
Yep.
Since then, you were doing your due diligence with the DEP and Army Corps, and I was off for a year. Just came back on. So thank you for those questions. That was the first I've got to see them. I would like to go over them this evening, if that's okay with the board. I know it was approved that was complete for preliminary, but we're in the next phase of beyond preliminary, so there's still, I take it, read it, there's still a bite at the apple. Unless someone disagrees with me, but that's the way I review the ordinance. Some of the stuff is just, maybe doesn't really mean anything, but I guess it shows anything that, I kind of look at this stuff, look at these items. Can you, on note 15, you talk about the minimum open space required on this cluster subdivision. It was 615, roughly just under 116,000 square feet. I came up with 720. How did you come up with your number?
Let me run it back and grab a plan so I can see what you're referring to. Okay, note 15, so you're questioning the 615,959?
Because my understanding for open space, so this is in the residential, you need 120,000 square feet. We're doing 40,000 square foot lot, so that leaves, right, the remainder times 9, I came up with 720,000 square feet.
Yeah, I believe that number is calculated the difference between the minimum lot size under conventional zoning minus what you're proposing for lot sizes.
Okay, so they're not doing the minimum 40, they're doing
Correct.
what the lot size is.
Right, like, for example, lot 1 is 65,000, lot 2 is 64,000. So we calculated that number, 120,000 times 9, minus the actual lot area of those 9 lots that we're proposing.
Okay, thank you.
And we're proposing about 841,000 square feet of open space, as you know, to meet the density requirements. So we're certainly proposing quite a bit more than what's required.
Yeah. Sorry. On the underground utilities, what's the minimum spacing of the vaults, transformers? I know you just showed one on here.
Am I showing one on there?
Yeah, on the sheet 4, up on lot 8.
Oh, yeah. Or there's one on the common boundary between 1 and 2 as well.
Did I miss that one?
You know,
1 and 2?
not.
Oh, I see it.
Yep.
8 and 9, 6 and 7, 1 and 2. Those common boundary lines, there's a transformer shown.
Okay. And CMP's okay with those distances?
Yeah, so typically the way this works, CMP gets involved. CMP doesn't like to get involved until we're ready to build this thing. So once the project gets approved, we will submit to CMP and get a work order started on that. So they will review that at that time.
Okay. Yeah, so you'll probably triple that amount, be my suspicion.
Most likely, that'll change drastically,
Yep.
yes. Yep. We always show it on paper, and then the reality is it changes drastically, yeah. To whatever standard they'd like
They
us.
send a field tech,
Correct.
not supervisor, but field planner out
Yeah.
Yep.
to assess what needs to be done.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they won't start the process until we're ready to start construction, and you have to kind of set up a project to do that, so.
Yep.
And then you're going to show on the plans where you're going to put the gang mailbox and a pull-out for them
Yes,
on the new map that you're going to
Yep.
provide.
yeah, I'll be happy to show that. Does the board have a preference of where that would be located?
Probably on the front as you turn in, right?
I would think. I think that's what the past two have done.
Yeah, I think that's the logical place to put it.
Yeah. May I ask this question, what is the applicant planning to do with the remainder of that other 25 acres? Will that someday be more subdivision houses?
There certainly could be in the future. Right now, I don't believe he has any intentions of doing anything right now, but the applicant owns more than even what's shown on this plan. The applicant owns in total 191 acres in this area, so there certainly could be something in the future, but as of right now, this is what he's intending to do.
Okay. Just getting to your questions on page 6 of your submission, it's just the open space size. Again, it doesn't really matter, I guess, but you had the note, we said see note 14, it's actually note 15, and maybe you added something prior to.
Yeah, I'm sure we have, yeah.
Lot 6, 7, 8, and 9, I didn't see where they, well, in your response about open space, you had stated that they all have, all lots abut common space for a minimum of 25 feet. See sheet 1. I didn't see where lots 6, 7, 8 had common space.
Yeah, so the strip of land behind 5 and 6, there's a 25-foot strip of land
Yep.
to the,
Oh, I meant 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9, I didn't see where it had any.
correct. Those do not touch the open space as it was currently designed. I think through our process, we changed the open space. I think originally there was a bigger chunk of open space that went behind 7, 8, and 9, and didn't incorporate that long strip.
But they're within 1,000 feet, so
Yes.
it's valid.
Yep.
Okay. There were a couple of notes that were just off from your responses. Again, it's probably because you added something.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, a lot of these were created kind of when we first came in, and, notes have been added and whatnot, so the numbering may have changed.
Okay. The paperwork that I had from Mark Hampton Associates is dated June 10th, 2022. I'm assuming, is that for the cluster subdivision? Or was that for the original subdivision?
Is this the wetland information we're talking about, or is this
This
the
is
high-intensity
the
soils?
soils evaluation. And then to go along with that, the test pits information that we have, which was done in June of 2022.
Correct.
Makes me wonder, is that for the original subdivision, or is that for the cluster subdivision?
So,
So if it's for the cluster, if it's for the original, then we don't have it for the cluster.
right, no, the information you have there is for the current layout of the subdivision. So the test bits that are referenced there are the test bits that are referenced on our plan showing them on each one of these lots.
On the current,
Correct. Yep. So we did a series of tests.
so you got right on it after the site walk then?
We did, yeah. As the board recalls, we originally submitted a conventional layout for this subdivision. During the sketch plan process, the board decided and felt that, accurately, I believe, that a cluster layout was the
Yeah, I
best,
think
the best
I
approach.
mentioned that up, and so we're
Yeah.
going off to like, well, did you?
Yep, yep.
So I guess the only thing I really don't agree with is, I agree with your statement on the nitrate study. It doesn't meet the densities, but the ordinance says if it's over an aquifer, if you have some professional that can, for my satisfaction, state that it's not warranted, or the soils are such, I would be okay with that, I guess, but, where is that? Oh, it's actually in the subdivision section itself. Section 13(3)(b)(2)(u), a hydrogeologic assessment prepared by a registered professional engineer or geologist when the subdivision is located over a significant sand and gravel aquifer or recharge area, or the density.
But it also says the planning board can waive that.
Yeah, and I just, when you know me, I'm thorough and I go either way, but it also states that in Article 10, that when it's over an aquifer,
Yep.
the planning board may approve the proposed subdivision. The board must have determined the subdivision will not adversely affect. I'm not qualified to determine that or not. If a professional can provide us with a statement or something, then that's just me. I don't think we need to worry about the drawdown. It's just more the, we are away from other people's, but it is an aquifer. I don't know if there are septic systems that are designed more specifically that won't allow leakage, or if it's really the septic field where the nitrates come from. If you can explain some of that, Andy, I'd be open to that, but
Are you,
I-
are you confident that the septic systems that are designed for these houses is sufficient to prevent contamination of groundwater?
I'm satisfied. I know Mark Hampton Associates, who designed the septic systems, is satisfied. I also know the DEP and the Army Corps, who reviewed this project as part of their purview, were satisfied.
but they don't review for nitrates.
No.
So that's, I just want to get to that. Septic systems, when they're new, great. When they get 30, 40 years old, I'm just coming on board. I'm new. I know that there's a good portion of this board that's already reviewed it, and I guess that's just my position.
Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Craig?
So my take on all this, let's get his DEP and Army Corps permits. And part of the Army Corps permit, I'm reading it right here, as you see, the general permit has terms and conditions that ensure water quality is protected. I don't know the last time we made anyone do a nitrate study. I don't feel it's warranted here, personally. I just I guess I don't really see the need for it. Where there's so much square footage, is 600 and something thousand.
My issue is that if I were to apply for a single-family building permit on an aquifer, I don't have to get a nitrate study.
Right.
It's only a subdivision,
Of seven or more.
7 or more lots. So we already have, what, Mr. Ham's already built out, what, 3 lots
Three
now?
lots, yeah,
And those did not have to, those went to subdivision approval,
correct.
and we didn't require a nitrate study then, did we?
No.
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 Okay.
And that's fine, I mean, and I guess I'd just clarify that the DEP and Army Corps do not review for nitrate. That's
No, we
stormwater,
Right.
that's stormwater quality that they review.
Anything else, Craig?
No, I thought everything else was,
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. Roger?
My only comment is that the Mark Hampton Associates says June 10th, 2022 for an 11-lot subdivision. So do you have the one for the 9-lot one? Because that's what we had in our packet. That's the only comment I had.
Yeah,
Okay. Any other additional comments from the board? Okay. Abutters?
Yes.
Yes, you have to go to the podium, state your name, please.
Hi, my name's Joan Coffin. The only thing I have to say is I live right across the street where they want to put the road.
Yep.
I have a problem with my well
Okay.
because of the water table. By putting them there, how's that going to affect my water table?
I don't know, I'm not a electrical engineer.
That's the big thing is the water table.
Okay.
And the traffic, that road's 35. I have a 6-year-old grandson.
Yep.
That goes up and down that road.
Yep.
Sorry.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay,
Most
yep.
of the people in Buxton don't know me, but I own this little piece of property across the street.
Okay.
Has there ever been considered a traffic, the traffic that goes up and down that street? There's a turn there just on the end of my property. I don't know how many times I've come out there and almost got hit. They come down through there so fast. His road is going to be directly across from this little property I own. Also at night, we're going to have to put up with car lights going in and out of that road he's got. There should be some sort of traffic study done because that's a dangerous stretch down through there, and no matter what you do, you can't get anybody to slow down on that turn.
It's really a,
Even the buses that come up through there have a hard time.
it's really a public
Shouldn't he be made to do?
safety item that we really can't make the applicant responsible for.
But there's gonna be, all those night headlights hit that poor little house all the time. There's no buffer zone between that and his develop. I don't care what he does with his property. He has a right to develop it if he wants.
Okay.
I'm more concerned about the traffic and the effect of all the lights that are gonna hit that poor little house across the street. I mean, it's not a mansion, I admit it's not, but I do own that property. And I think some consideration for the neighbors on each side of that road, they got brand-new houses, I really feel sorry for them, are gonna have a road go right down by their properties. What he does down in there doesn't bother me. I've seen this millions of times. It happened to me where I happen to live now. I bought a house that was empty and behind me, and now I've got 2 or 3 big developments behind me, and my property is worth more than I ever thought it would be, but you don't think the town should have some sort of traffic study down in there?
Usually on an application like this, we don't require a traffic study. If you're building a supermarket or a convenience store or a drugstore or some kind of large-scale commercial development, we would.
It really
Usually
is
for,
dangerous.
um,
Either that or get the town to talk to the local police department about reducing the speed down through there, where it's so residential now.
Feel free to call public safety over here and
Yeah.
voice your displeasure with how people are driving.
Well, whatever he wants to do with his property doesn't bother me, but it does bother me about the traffic situation coming up and down through there. That road is really narrow, all the way down from
It's tough too, because
the entrance in.
even if you reduce the speed, people are gonna speed. You can reduce the speed limit and people are, you can reduce the speed limit and people are still
Yeah.
gonna speed. You can tell someone, hey, it's against the law to do this, but people,
Different parts of rural, that they got the speed limit down to 15 miles an hour. I don't know what the speed limit is up in there.
it's probably
'cause I creep up
35.
in there.
but I mean, maybe some bushes or shrubbery to make it so that when someone pulls to the end of that road, the lights
First
are,
thing I could see happening
a fence.
is somebody come around that turn, a car coming out of his road, they hit him, and that would be flipped over into that
Yeah.
small dooryard I have there, and would have a major accident.
Okay. Andy, could I ask you if it would be possible to provide, because,
I'll let him talk.
yep, when you do exit the new road,
Yes.
you're going to be directly across the street from the dwelling that is there now. It would be possible to have some kind of buffer or screening put up on that property to alleviate the
Yeah, to give the
headlights.
board some insight, when the applicant built those first 3 houses, the applicant reached out to the owner of that house and offered to put a fence in the front yard. That was denied by the current owner. The applicant is more than willing to approach that owner again and see if they'd be willing to allow him to install a fence there to give them some buffering from the headlights.
Now, is that your property?
That's her property.
Okay.
My property.
Can you talk to Mr. Ham?
Live there.
Can you talk to Mr. Ham?
The property.
He wants to, can you talk to Mr. Ham about that? No, not right now.
Not right now.
Find about fencing. He'll talk about the
just a barrier.
A barrier.
Well, the applicant will touch base with the
Yeah.
landowner
Okay.
and work out those details.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Andy.
Any other abutters like to speak?
Jerry, can we get their names before they start?
Yes, could you, excuse me, ladies, could you state your name for the record again?
My name's Joan Coffin, and that's Janet Coffin.
Joan and Jane?
Janet.
Janet Coffin, thank you. I know, I am too. That's why I didn't hear your name. Just for the record, we want to make sure that your comments are recorded on the record, so we have, yep, okay. Good evening.
Good
Can
evening.
you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Nancy Hendricks.
Okay.
I am an abutter.
Good
to
evening.
this land. My concern, like her, is the traffic, but that's minor. My concern is the waterway, the protected peatland that is involved in this development that nobody has really mentioned or even looked at. Also, the aquifer, which did come out, is rather a large one. It is part of the Saco River watershed. There is a map that we brought in for people to look at. The concern, of course, once again, like you said, is not so much the housing development, although that's going to be a major thing, because everyone, if you looked at that, has a water barrier before you get into their lot to be built. Secondly, I've been in touch with the Department of Environmental Protection. I've been in touch with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yep.
There's a lot of inadequacies and not correct information been put out, such as I talked to the person who, like you said, this application for DEP in 2022 is the only one that they were aware of. I did see where it did get updated, and it was a permit for Tier 1, which, if you're familiar with the rules and regulations, Tier 1 is not capable of being done because it is a peatland. A peatland is a very protected environmental landscape in this area. Our land, when we combined it in, we took the peatland behind our land just to protect it. That peatland and that aquifer feeds Bonneagle Pond. It also eventually goes to, the waterway goes to the Saco River. It also provides most of the water, the wells. We have a dug well. It provides our drinking water. And when you think of this housing development coming in, you're talking people who are going to have paved driveways, which are going to put off chemicals into that wetland. You're going to have people who are going to fertilize their yards, who are going to have this septic system, which will be draining into this wetland. That wetland is all around that area. And I think you were with my husband when you did the site walk. Did you not find a lot of little bits of running water and wetland that was out there?
There was one area that had running water, but I was able to walk it with Crocs the day that we
Right,
did
for
the...
right now. But once again, once you start to dig in the peatland, there is no bottom. There's no way of this road going across that wetland and putting in a culvert, because there's nothing in the bottom that's going to hold that culvert up.
That's
If
an
he wants to
engineering
build a-
question, okay?
Huh?
That's an engineering question.
That's right.
We'll leave that up to the engineers.
And that would be wonderful when we have never seen, and the Army Corps of Engineers told us, the person I talked to in the office, that they did not come out to this site. Neither did DEP. They were given a description by the developer of what this land was. And that description was a wooded with minor wetland involved. No one has been out to look at it. No one has been out to dig holes as far as those two things. That is what I want to have done. I want something to protect that wetland, and I want that to have somebody who has the experience and the expertise to know what they're looking at. Because back in 1972, Bonneagle Pond was contaminated. Somebody had been dumping something in the waterway that was feeding it. It took years to clean it up. It is now a recreational place. It is homes for a lot of people. I don't want to see it done again. And I don't want to lose my well, because that's going to be one of the first to go, because I'm right there.
Maybe I could have the engineer representing the applicant answer some of your questions, if you wouldn't mind, some of her points.
Sure. So, yes, this project received 3 levels of permitting from the state. This project received a Tier 1 wetland permit, which is required anything under 15,000 square feet of wetland impacts. I think this project has 13,500 approximately square feet of wetland impacts. The state looked at those impacts. We have to prove 2 things to the state. We have to prove that we are doing everything we can to limit the impacts to the wetlands, meaning we're designing the road and the lots strategically in a place that doesn't cause more impact to the wetlands than we need to. I think anyone can look at the location of the road. You can see the beginning of the road, how we're swerving the road to come in. Why are we doing that? We're doing that to avoid wetland impacts. The other thing the state looks at is when you do impact wetlands, are you doing it in a way that you're reducing the impacts to the wetlands to the greatest extent possible? How do we do that? Well, we lower the grade of the road as far as we can. We steepen up the slopes on the side of the road to try to reduce the impacts to the wetlands. Those were the items that the DEP is looking at as part of their Tier 1 wetland application. The Army Corps of Engineers is required to review any impact over 1 square feet. 1 impact of wetland impact is required a main general permit with the Army Corps of Engineers. Army Corps of Engineers review is expansive, and also, most importantly, they're looking at connectivity of the wetlands, making sure that we've got a culvert system that will allow water to flow from one side of the road through the road and continue to have a connectivity of the 2 wetlands. So they reviewed the culverts that we have proposed along the road within this aquifer to make sure that there's adequate waterways for the water and the creatures to continue to move through these culverts. The last level of permit was a stormwater permit by rule. That is more of a global review that the DEP does to kind of look at the impacts of this project and its impacts to the wetlands, its impact to downstream conditions, its impact from a stormwater point of view. So those were the level of permitting that we received from the state.
Do they generally come and do a field inspection, or is it done by GPS and by satellite imagery and by soil maps and?
There's, I don't know if I can give you an adequate answer on that.
Okay.
It depends on the agent. I mean, every project gets given to a certain agent. Some agents prefer to come out to the site and take a look at the site. Some agents don't. Some agents, as part of our application, you're required to provide pictures of the site. Obviously, we gave them the plans, the test pits, all the information that you guys have looked at. They obviously have Google Earth and other tools that they're able to use to get a feel for the site. So do they always come to the site? No. Right now, unfortunately, the DEP and Army Corps are extremely understaffed and underutilized. Their ability to go to the sites has reduced drastically since COVID. I think right now there are very few times they actually do go out to a site.
And talking about the peat or the bog areas, where generally the culverts are gonna go?
Yep.
Not so much a planning board question, but more of an engineering question. How do you solve that issue with installing culverts in that type of soil?
Yeah, so that's going to be something where when the contractor's out there and excavating into the wetland to find out what's out there for material, our office will be involved to have discussions with them about the best way to adequately support this road. What that approach is going to be, I don't know until we start digging out there and know what kind of conditions we're going to have. I suspect they're going to have to dig down a ways and find some kind of suitable material that they could use as a base and work up from there.
Yeah.
How far they have to excavate to do that, I don't know until we start digging out there.
Is there a designation for peat in the soil profiles? I didn't see that.
So if you look at the state, as you know, has medium intensity soils maps that are provided for the whole state. There are some sections of this site on the medium intensity maps that are just designated as peat bogs.
Okay.
And that's where the wetlands are described.
Okay.
As part of this project, the applicant hired Markhampton Associates to do a high intensity soil survey, which is a much more accurate representation of that medium intensity soil survey, and none of that was found as part of this.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional comments?
We have a few more comments.
My name is Richard Hendricks, I'm also the butter.
Yep.
Okay, he mentioned the soil.
Yep.
I have a map here done by which is an official map, done by the Soil Conservation, and it only does this area.
Yep.
And this shows the mass of the peat bog out there and all the surrounding. The slope out there is 8 to 15 degree range. So any houses they're building out there, and also in the description, the Army Corps in said they can't do any blasting out there. So I don't see how they're going to put any houses out there.
That again is an engineering question, not a planning board question.
Yeah.
We review the information that we have in front of us. We don't regulate how they're going to get to that end point.
Right, right.
That's up to the code enforcement officer
I understand that.
and
understand
the
that.
engineers.
Well, he just mentioned about digging out there. We would like to see somebody go out there and dig first before they start building that road and go out there and disturb it to find out if they can actually do
Generally
that.
not how it works.
But it is. I talked to the Department of Environmental Protection. They are supposed to be notified 2 weeks prior to the start of the construction. That means that they will come out and inspect it.
Which they can do, yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what they've already told us that they
Yeah.
would do.
Yep.
But they were not the last time when the other houses were built.
Yep.
Were called in 2 weeks prior.
They don't need to get a permit from DEP to build a single dwelling,
That's right.
family dwelling.
And the
You don't need
pictures
a
that were
permit.
sent to them at that time were a wooded forest.
I
That was- I know.
I don't
I'm just
have-
saying
I
is
don't
that
have-
the DEP.
That's really hearsay. I really don't have access to that
Well,
information.
I'm just saying is that when they took those pictures in '22, there was a forest there. It was then soon after that clear cut.
Okay.
That's the difference,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
All right.
Any other comments or questions?
No, not at this time. We're still doing further direction with the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineer, and she had another company.
Well, I
we're doing.
encourage you to keep involved and be,
Yep. And we sent maps of this here, which you people were supposed to
Yep,
get a
we've seen the
copy of and
maps.
stuff. But the peat bog is what we are concerned about, that we don't want that disrupted and done, because once they start digging out there, if they don't find a bottom out there, I dug that many years ago and know what's out there, but I didn't dig this particular area because I didn't own the property.
Okay.
But down in my area, I know what is there, and that's where this map came from.
okay.
Okay? Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from abutters? Any other comments from the general public? Okay, seeing none.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have a second. I have a motion by Scott to close the public hearing, and a second by Craig. All those in favor? Okay. Are we ready to move
So
on?
I have a question.
Sure.
In lieu of doing a nitrate study, is that something that, Annie, that you feel comfortable that, because we don't need a certified geologist, it could be a registered professional engineer with the information that you have, state that there wouldn't be an issue with nitrates?
I guess I don't know what you're asking me.
Instead of doing a full-blown nitrate study, it sounded like you were pretty confident. You have somebody, registered professional engineer of Maine that could write something out and stating that fact.
I mean, I'm sure Mark Hampton Associates, who worked on the project, did the septic design, did the soils work, would put something together if that's something the board would want.
I think that would be pretty minimal work and would at least satisfy me somewhat for the ordinance. I don't know if, I'm not sure we can waive that requirement. It may not have been done in others or all of them. But I guess that's what I would like to have, just to complete this application and approve it.
Okay.
We can make it a conditional use.
Yep. Does town staff have any comments or questions?
Just a comment to remind the board that the applicant did a wetland delineation and we had that peer reviewed.
Yes.
They only mention a vernal pool, but not a significant vernal pool.
That's depicted on the map.
Yep, I don't know if that would cover Pete, if he would have brought that up or not. I'm not
Okay.
an expert in wetland
Yeah.
delineation, but it wasn't, that concern wasn't raised by either of those professionals.
Right. And we asked you at the site walk why it wasn't a vernal pool, and can you tell us why?
Yeah, so there's two classifications of a vernal pool, significant and non-significant. It's
Yep.
dependent on the number of egg masses that are found during the breeding season.
Yep.
This vernal pool didn't meet the requirements to be considered a significant vernal pool. Therefore, it's a non-significant vernal pool. It's in the back of, I believe, lots 7 and 8.
Yep.
4 and 5.
Yep.
The applicant, at the same time, it's a non-significant vernal pool, so it's treated just like a wetland at this point.
And you still noted on the map, though?
We've still stayed away from it. We've still designed around it. We've still limited the setbacks on lots 4 and 5 to stay outside of 250 feet from it, just to be safe and make sure we're protecting the environment, so.
And can you just give us a brief description of what a vernal pool is, very quickly?
Yeah, so it's a low spot where water gathers for a good portion of the year, and salamanders and other creatures are allowed to use it as a breeding ground. It typically is a low hole in the ground that collects water and does not have an outlet. The importance is it doesn't have an outlet. It doesn't have a way for the water to
And it
get out.
usually goes dry in a certain time of year?
Yeah, usually in July and August or something like that, it dries up.
Well, and that 200 feet is how you would space away from a vernal pool anyways, right?
Yeah, so this, you're not allowed to do, if it was a significant vernal pool, you can't do anything within 100 feet of it. Between 250 and 100, you can impact 25% of that area. But again, we're staying away from it. We're not doing anything within 250 feet of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is the board ready for conditions of approval?
I think so.
Okay. Roger?
I mean, still my only comment was that the only, from Mark Hampton Associates, information we have is from 22. But,
Okay.
just haven't updated.
Yep.
The 9.
Heath?
No.
Okay, I'll read the conditions for approval for subdivisions. All elements and features of this plan and all representations made by the applicant concerning the development and use of the property which appear in the record of the planning board proceedings are conditions of the approval. No changes from the conditions of approval is permitted unless an amended plan is first submitted to and approved by the planning board. Number 2, that the applicant be in compliance with all applicable provisions of Article 13. Number 3, notify fire chief within 72 hours before fire tank is installed. Number 4, all outstanding bills paid before building permit is issued. And number 5, any others. And my partial list was an approved letter of credit from the town. And then, Patty, did you have additional conditions too?
I did, and they all come from the ordinance.
Yep.
Section 12.4 talks about before the road is completed, they can only do 50% of the houses. I should read this.
Yes.
Road acceptance regulations must be adhered to at the time the development is 50% completed. When the code enforcement officer determines that 50% completion stage has been reached, he shall inform the developer by certified mail that the developer has 1 year from that date to complete the road as required, and that no additional permits shall be issued for the development until the roads are completed. I also added applicant shall install stop sign, stop bar, and road sign. Holding tank shall be filled and operating prior to the first building in the subdivision receiving occupancy permit. Hydrant holding tank must sit for a full year, then be re-inspected. If there are deficiencies noted, the developer will need to make the repairs. Shall be an easement to the town for access and maintenance of the hydrant cistern.
And do we need to add the gang mailbox on the plans of that?
I think he stated that they were going to do that.
Do that. And I'll leave it up to the board, but I'd like to see, like I said, something on the nitrate.
A letter from
Mark Hampton.
Associates, Mark Hampton.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Any other additional conditions from the board, or we all set? Okay. You fairly clear with what we're asking you for?
I am, yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Do you want to, so we need to approve the conditions as well?
Well, we're going to vote on those right now.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman, I thought you were moving on.
Motions for subdivisions. Based on previous discussion, we find the application to be in compliance with all applicable provisions of Article 13. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a
Accept the
second?
findings.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Scott, a second by Roger for Article 1. Discussion, all those in favor? P5. Number 2, motion to approve the application with the conditions stated this evening and from previous meetings. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion by Scott, a second by Roger. Discussion, all those in favor? Okay. Next item on the agenda is
Voting on the findings.
voting on the findings for Andrew Morrow, Bill Ham, an application for a non-lap subdivision, Old Standish Road, map 1, lot 120, 132-1, 131, and map 2, lot 4 for Bucks Estates. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the findings for Bill Ham, tax map 1, lot 131, 132-1, map 2, lot 4.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion by Craig, a second by Scott, to adopt the findings of fact for Bucks Estates. Discussion, all those in favor? Be 5. So I would communicate with Mr. Ham about some screening, because I did notice that on the sidewalk. Hold on.
You said it was worth more than you ever wanted it to be.
Jerry, do you want to do,
Do you want us to do the findings of fact for
Yeah.
Please.
the construction company? You want to make a motion, Scott?
I'll make a motion to accept the findings of fact for Dustin Hunter, Blue Ladder Construction, Material Storage at 22 Ripple Lane, tax map 3, lot 1-1A-1.
Second.
Motion by Scott and a second by Craig to accept the findings of fact for Don Smith and Dustin Hunt for an application for a business office, 22 Ripple Lane, map 3, lot 1-1A1. Discussion, all those in favor? 5. Next on the agenda is CEO report.
So I have a question about how we interpret or require the 40,000 square foot buildable lot area
Okay?
in elderly or affordable housing unit.
And that's the email that you've given us?
Yep.
Okay?
I asked the question of the attorney before I did research. She says it applies, that 40,000, the conflict is that we require 20,000 square foot per additional unit for affordable and elderly. But we also require 40,000 square feet of buildable area for subdivisions. In the past, in the last 2 that we've done, one on Long Plains Road and one on Parker Farm Road, we did not require 40,000 square feet per lot. We just required, per unit, we just required 20,000 additional square feet per unit. So we have 2 of them coming up, and I feel like the board, I need direction from the board so I can correctly steer the applicants in the right direction.
well, the Parker Farm Road one, wasn't that the Dearborn?
I don't know who.
And that was a mobile home
No,
which
I'm
has
not
different...
talking about that. I'm talking about Elwell Farms, and that's on Long Plains, and Avesta Housing,
Oh, that was a long time ago, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And the ordinance, I looked at the ordinance during the times when those were approved,
Yep.
and that 40,000 square foot requirement was in the ordinance at
Then.
that time also. But we didn't require that.
When we approved those 2 projects.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think it's a conflict in the ordinance,
Yep.
which we should probably fix for the future.
Okay.
But for now, if the board would vote as to what the requirement is, I think it,
Can we do that?
Well,
I don't
so
think
you're
we can,
saying...
I don't think we can amend the zoning ordinance.
I'm not asking you to amend the zoning ordinance. I'm asking you to say how you interpret that section,
Okay,
if you would interpret it now as you have in the past.
okay.
Which section's that? The affordable or the elderly?
Both, because we have one of each coming, and they both require 20,000 square foot for the additional units.
If they're talking about, does section 1122.F.6,
And the table, land, 9.6 is where it talks about lot size requirements.
I just saw this, so
Yeah, I just got it tonight, so,
So in your first question, it says, does the buildable area apply to elderly housing and affordable housing? Are you talking about table 9, or are you talking about section 11.22.f, where it
Table
talks
9.
about density?
Talking about table 9 where it talks about density.
Because in the affordable, elderly housing, affordable housing development section,
I'm talking about the 40,000 square feet buildable area.
so
Not talking
I
about-
think that applies to elderly, but not affordable. Because in the affordable section, again, this is just reading it and not section 11.22.f, which is on page 11-31. Even though this section, it states in the first paragraph, this is ordinance for both elderly and affordable, but this section says affordable housing. It's specified.
Yep, that was changed last year, before it was applied to both equally the same.
Correct, so we separated that. So I guess the way I read it is that affordable housing is eligible for 2.5 times density.
And elderly housing in the dimensional requirements requires whatever the minimum lot size is for the unit and 20,000 square feet for each additional unit with a 40,000 square foot buildable area requirement.
So would that mean that you need, if you had a 40,
40 for the first one, then an additional 20 for each one?
No. So in the residential zone for elderly housing, for the first dwelling, you need 120,000 square feet. For each additional unit, you need 20,000 square feet. Further down, it asks for a buildable area of 40,000 square feet, which I feel is a conflict. I feel that it was not read that way before. And the last two that I could find that were elderly and affordable, with the same table.
so I would take that,
How's that a conflict?
you can,
I'm having a hard time understanding how it's a conflict. To be honest, I mean, 120,000 square feet for the first unit, 20,000 each.
So if you do your base calculation on that, and then we also require 40,000 square feet of buildable area, that's doubling that. Why have 20,000 square feet if we're really gonna require
no, no, no,
40,000?
that's not how I read that. You just need 40,000 square feet of buildable area on that 120,000 square
Per
foot
unit.
lot. No? You need a
Look at
buildable,
the, if you look at that number 2 footnote,
again,
dwelling.
right, you've looked at this for a while. You just, so then per dwelling unit,
that's why I'm asking,
And
because
the
I
lot
feel like that
size.
is a conflict.
nowhere does not apply.
9.6. All right, so,
Per dwelling unit. The footnote says per dwelling unit, period. Minimum lot size and buildable area does not apply to an accessory dwelling unit constructed in compliance with section 11.23. So are these would be, each of these additional units be accessory?
No, except, an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit,
Correct. So would that,
limited in size to 500 square feet.
so that note really doesn't apply, does it?
Doesn't apply to an elderly housing complex, no. It applies if you're putting an accessory dwelling up, but that's not what these are.
So I would take it I really hate doing this on live. Again, this is my initial reading, the way that would read, that say I wanted to do a 5-unit elderly, a 6-unit elderly unit. I'm gonna need 120,000 square feet for one, and the other 5, I need an additional 20,000 square feet. So that'd be 100,000, so I would need a lot that's 220,000 square feet, and it's all built on, and it can all be built on a 40,000 square foot area.
I don't understand what you mean.
Do we have a response from town council?
You have it. It's in that.
But which is, so when paragraph, I'm including her response here, 1 and 2 are her responses,
Yes,
not your questions.
yes. My
Okay.
questions are in bold.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
All right, I just wanted to clarify that.
So that's not how I would read that.
And I don't think we have in the past read it.
Because that's similarly to having a business. Well, we just did a second one today.
Right.
If you were to take that square foot for each one, and that's why I think I'm saying that you need a minimum of 40,000 square foot buildable area. And then you can stack your units in there, but it has to, but again, it's also got to meet your density.
But
Yeah,
wait,
that's a given. It's got to meet the density. But that seems to conflict.
I would need more time to.
yeah, and I'll go through this and I might be completely wrong on this. Basically, what he's saying is that the elderly housing does not qualify for the bonus, correct?
But our ordinance, yeah,
What do you mean by bonus?
As the
Oh, density
or
bonus.
density bonus,
Correct.
where the affordable does, or is that incorrect?
so she's looking at section 11.22.
Yep,
I'm looking at section 9.6.
okay. So the question for us is whether we want to go with the 40,000 or what would, and then add the bonus for affordable, or I'm confused?
Yeah, I think we need time to, I think we need time to digest this.
Yeah. Can you try to put this more of a layman's, I know there's conflict in the ordinance, but I'm more in layman's terms for somebody that doesn't quite understand. The ordinance says you need 40,000 square feet in one section, and then in another section, it says you can go
Right in
down.
the same section, right
Okay.
underneath it.
Right, but then it says you can go to 20,
Correct,
which we approved 2 other previous projects at 20.
right.
And those should have been 40, or can we approve at 20? We could go either or, correct?
Well, a single-family home is different than an elderly project or affordable building. Those are like subdivisions.
It's a single family
But didn't you say that
per dwelling unit.
for a single-family,
Yep.
per dwelling unit, you need
For a
40,000?
residential unit, you need 120,000 square feet.
Yeah,
If it's for elderly housing in the residential zone for the first dwelling unit, you need 120,000 square feet, and for each additional dwelling unit, you need 20,000 square feet of land.
But elsewhere, it says you need 40.
Right underneath. So you know how we have to have 40,000 square feet of buildable area
Yes,
per lot?
yes.
I'm asking if that applies to affordable or elderly housing development.
And it seemed like town council think it did. Is that correct?
And we have not in the past, and that's twice as much as what we rate in the above, right above that, say 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
That, yeah.
So that's something we would need to change at town meeting.
I don't, what's that duplex that we did off from the road that Chris lives on?
Oh,
Spruce
Spruce
Swamp.
Swamp?
Spruce Swamp. There are 2 duplex units that went in there. We dealt with this.
We didn't approve that.
No,
No, I know, but what,
I don't know. That was a sketch plan, they haven't been back with their preliminary.
Okay.
We didn't decide
I don't know if that
anything.
went on after I left or not.
Yeah, it never came back yet.
And how's the board feel?
I need time to think about it.
Good.
Yeah,
I just,
I need a little bit of time.
Okay.
I mean, that's twice as much.
Yeah.
I,
If we go with the 20,000, are we in error with the ordinance? I mean, we could go either way, right?
I mean, we've done it,
Done it before. It's just gonna allow more it's gonna double the density.
not really.
No? It'll add more units though, won't it?
So what, we have it in there that elderly and affordable is 120 plus 20,000 square feet per dwelling.
I don't have
It's
an
not
issue.
adding more.
Right. I don't have an issue with going with that. If we've done that in the past. I was on the board when we approved Delwell Farms.
right, but LO Farm is, I think maybe, is this where you're getting it? LO Farm is a building, or is it multiple separate
A
units?
building with several dwelling
Right.
units inside.
We also approved the Vesta housing on
Separate buildings with
So that's why I'm
separate-
those are all-
saying-
Those are all separate buildings.
Right.
Well, they're three
Correct.
unit buildings.
Yep,
And
That's
that
what-
was approved with the 20,000, correct?
yes.
That's why I'm saying you just need a 40,000 square foot buildable area to put a unit on. Mm-hmm. But if you have, like my case, 6 units, you need 220,000, you need a 220,000 square foot lot that has a 40,000 square foot area to build a unit on.
Yep,
Inside, you have those 6 units.
right. Yeah, I agree.
Is that how you were interpreting it? Or?
She wasn't
when it
interpreting
says-
it because it's a conflict.
Not when it says per dwelling,
Right.
that is not how I think it's a
But
conflict.
where it says 40,000 square foot, that's what leads me to that, saying you just need a 40,000 square foot. But you can't just put 6 units on a 120,000 square foot lot. You need the additional acreage or square footage or land to do those additional, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with either, but
That's what it says.
that's another
Yeah.
story.
I'm okay with the 120,000 and the 20.
Yeah.
Greg? Roger?
I think there should probably be some locations.
It's okay. Listen, I'm not, yeah, I don't have a comment.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out, yeah, so it's,
In one part of the ordinance, it says you can do 120, and I'm paraphrasing here, and correct me if because I'm probably completely wrong. One part of the ordinance it says you could do 120 and 20, and the other part says you can do 120 and 40, correct?
Correct.
Am I
Where does it say
phrasing
that?
that
Where does it-
correct?
It's not
Where does it say
really
that?
that, it's saying that.
Okay,
Buildable area of 40,000 square feet per dwelling unit. So there really needs to be a footnote put down there saying that for affordable and elderly housing, you only need 20,000 square feet of buildable area. Per unit.
Which we can point to the section of the ordinance.
It's the per unit.
yeah, yep.
There's no way for you to get 40,000 square feet and still need 20,000 square feet. You can't get that.
Yeah.
Jerry, I think the 120 and 20 will work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But it just needs
One-
to have a
you need a-
40,000 square foot area
I
to build
would
on.
just I want to make sure that we're not trying to amend the zoning ordinance with authority that we don't have.
And I don't think it's nothing that we haven't already done that way before.
It doesn't mean it's right.
So I guess I would offer though is there may be areas in town that we don't require the extra square foot per unit. For instance, if you're gonna, in a village zone, you want to build put an apartment building up.
It's
Why do you
85
really need all that extra if you're doing a,
Okay, are we fairly confident that we can tell Patty that we're comfortable with the 120/20 for now, until we can amend this and fix it in
Yes.
June?
Yes.
I don't agree with attorneys.
I don't either.
No.
And I wished I'd have done the research that I did after I asked the question, before I asked the question, because I probably wouldn't have asked the question.
Well,
Wish we had a chalk.
a good attorney will tell you never ask a question that you already know the answer of, right?
I didn't know the answer.
Okay, is that sufficient for us
Yes.
for now?
Yep.
Okay.
What's the next one?
And then discuss proposed zone changes to review the process for replacement of structures and the expansion in the shoreline zone. Patty, that is for,
So currently, replacement of structure right now is in the shoreline zone is reviewed by the appeals board. In chapter 1000, which we are not in compliance with, but in chapter 1000 and other towns, the planning board is charged with reviewing replacement of structures in the shoreline zone. And I approached the zoning board with this question, and they're okay with moving that authority to the planning board,
okay.
if the planning board wants to take that role on.
And we would have to amend the zoning ordinance to do that, correct? Which would be something we would do in June.
Correct.
For even non-conforming lots, we would review them, or would that still go to the appeals?
If it's only in the shoreline zone,
And a conforming lot,
most of those are non-conforming lots.
that's why the appeal board probably reviewed it.
But in other towns, it's the planning board. You guys work with the ordinance twice a month.
She does it every day.
Still confuses me.
Yeah.
But,
20 years, I get totally confused.
I feel like the process where you have regularly scheduled meetings, instead of meeting as needed, calling a meeting of the appeals board who isn't as experienced with the zoning ordinance as you are, I think the process would be easier for the applicant, for the staff, and for the town as a whole.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Approval of minutes for October 28th, 2024.
I had no issues with them, so I would approve as written.
Second.
I have a motion by Scott, and a second by Craig to approve the minutes for October 28th. Discussion, all those in favor? 5, you weren't here, so 4 with 1 absent. Approval of bills?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have an invoice for $55.57. This is for the public hearing for Dustin Hunter and Will Ham. I'll make a motion to accept, to pay these.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve $55.57 to Portland Press Herald. Discussion, all those in favor? Communications, I don't have any in my folder. Other business, signing of the Berry Farm subdivision, we can do that after we adjourn. Anybody would like to, Denny's address the board? Anybody like to speak to the board tonight?
I did have a question on the,
Yep.
so your proposal, Patty, on the zoning for the shoreline, what needs to happen with that.
We have to draft an amendment, it's gotta go to, have a public hearing, and it's gotta be voted on at town meeting.
That when you do a replacement or a new structure
Replacement of structure in the shoreline.
in a shoreline zone, the plan,
A new structure would have to meet all the requirements,
yep,
or get a variance from the appeals board.
okay.
It's just replacement of structure. It's to determine the greatest practical extent, and there's a list of things you have to look at and consider.
Well, I guess I said new because replacement is the replacing in kind. If you're enlarging it, if you dismantle something, you're now replacing with new.
Correct.
That's why I said new.
And when you do that, and you have the opportunity to move it further from the water, that's what this board would decide.
Perfect.
Okay, do we want to work on zone changes tonight, or on the next, the agenda for the next meeting, we have Wyatt Properties, which that is for what?
It's not on the next agenda.
And 207 is not on the next agenda as of now.
Right.
Okay,
Do we have an updated list? I know I missed that meeting when you guys discussed things. Do we have an updated list?
we do, but what I'm thinking is, why don't we put on the agenda for the next meeting that we'll have a workshop for zoning changes? Okay? Yes? You have to go, I'm sorry, because people in the audience can't hear, or watching can't hear you, and then I get yelled at. Go ahead, yes.
David Gray.
Yes.
No, I just have a suggestion on the ADUs.
Yep.
The way it's written in the book.
Yep,
I talked to Patty on this. I think it's 500 square feet.
Yes.
But she mentioned you deduct out the hallways, the closets, the bathrooms. As a builder, we don't look at it that way. We always look at the square footage outside
Yep.
dimensions. I didn't know if the board could take a look at that.
Yep.
Make a change on that to increase the size to cover that. I hope some towns are 800 square feet.
900,
900 square
1,000.
feet.
Yep.
You know, so 500 doesn't give us enough room probably for one bedroom,
yeah,
in most cases, so.
yep,
If the board could look at that.
yep,
It is better. I
Yep.
did actually do some research on every town that surrounds us, and I have a table that says what their accessory dwelling units sizes are.
okay.
Was the 500 just the suggestion from the state or the law?
500 is what we had.
And we amended it in June to increase it, because before we didn't take out bathrooms and hall, did we?
It's 500 of floor space.
Floor space, which included closets, bathrooms, hallways. So, yeah,
But we're at least half the size of most other. The next smallest is 900, and most of the towns around us are 1,000.
okay.
Yep,
So is that something we can work on for the workshop?
yep, I have it.
Thousands, pretty
For you
big.
to compare from the different
Okay.
towns.
So, Scott, can you pick up, from Patty, or are we gonna get all new
Yep, I'll make a new packet.
in our packets?
Yep,
Okay, because we have the old ones. So is everybody okay with the work? We'll definitely put on the agenda, we're gonna have a workshop for, even if it's 10 o'clock at night, for zoning changes,
Ta-ta-ta,
okay?
10 o'clock at night.
Well, I mean, it sounds
You want to
like,
be here by yourself?
it sounds like the agenda's not gonna be that heavy,
Right.
so it would be a good time. And Patty, can you remind Chief Schools that we could get some preliminary input from him on what he would like to see changed? I don't necessarily need him to come in that night, but at least we could start working on the verbiage
yep.
and go from there.
I think it's pretty well drafted. I just need him to look at it
Okay,
based on his conversations, our conversations.
okay, I'll
All set?
entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:29.
Second.
All those in favor? 6. 6.
Roger.